Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Detrone Does It. Of course, I am Detrone, and I does stuff. And this week, I'm going to be showing you how to replace the brake pads and rotors on your 2016 Tesla Model X. This is mine, a very used version, about 170,000 miles on it, and the brake pads are absolutely in need of changing. So we're going to get started, but before we do, one of the things you want to make sure, very first thing that you get, is some jack pads. That way you can actually get this thing up in the air without puncturing the bottom of your car. So if you don't have those, stop and go order them. Now that you have your jack pads, hopefully, we'll go into the screen and I'll show you how you put this thing in service mode and make it a little bit easier on yourself to get it in the air. Everybody, to another episode of Detrone Does It. Of course, I am Detrone and I does stuff. And this week,
What was the last one? Detrone did this.
I like that one.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to put our foot on the brake, go into the menu, hit suspension. We're actually going to adjust this down to very low and get the car as low as we can. And after we've lowered it, I'm gonna go into service. We're actually gonna put it into jack mode. And then once we put it into jack mode, you should be able to go back to suspension and see that it's ready to be serviced. My ride height suggestion for you guys will depend on the size of your jack. My jack sits up a little bit taller, so I actually have to have mine in standard height to be able to get it underneath with the actual jack pad.
All right, so once you've got the car put up in the air just a bit, you're going to go ahead and remove all of the caps off of your lug nuts. If yours don't have this, then of course you just skip this step. Then you'll jack the car up just a bit more. That way you can loosen the seal on those lug nuts. And once you've gotten those lug nuts all off, what I like to do is put some support on the car. So on the lower control arm, I place a jack stand. I also place a cinder block under mine. I know that's probably not a good idea, but I just want to prevent this thing from dropping down on my leg if I happen to be in the wheel well.
Okay, so now that we have access to our rotor and our brake caliper, there's a couple of things you want to note. So here, there is a pinhole, and here is a pinhole. Those two pins hold in this spring-loaded metal piece here. So that's what's holding your brake pads into place. So we're gonna need to remove that pin, and that will allow this metal piece to come out, and then we'll be able to slide the brake pads out of there. And then from there, I'll show you where the two bolts are to remove the actual brake caliper. And once we got the brake caliper off, then we'll remove this retaining pin here, and then the rotor should come off as well. I wanted to share this with you. When it's time to remove the pins from the brake caliper that's holding the spring in place, if you don't have a pin removal kit, you can get you a flat bit that you would normally use in your drill, maybe get an extender, and then you can just use that with a hammer. That's what I use. I just wanted to show it to you since I didn't have an actual pin removal kit.
All right, so now you've removed that top pin out and your tension plate has also come out of there. It'll come out real easy once you remove that top pin. You now just pop out that bottom pin, which is super easy because there's no more tension on it. Here, I'm just applying a little bit of pressure to get the caliper to loosen up. That way I can actually slide the brake pad out. As you can see, these things are very worn. I do that on the other side as well. That way I can get the brake pad out. And then here, these bolts are on the back holding the caliper in place. You're going to need to remove both of those bolts to be able to take your caliper off of the rotor. So you'll find the right socket, which I'll put the right ones down in the description. I use a little breaker handle here, allowed me to get a little more pressure on the wrench. Then you loosen all of these up, and that's going to allow you to take your caliper completely off once you've loosened the top and the bottom here. You don't want to leave this thing hanging. Of course, you got your brake lines attached to it. So I've got a bungee cord here, and I just bungee it to the top. That way it's sort of out of the way and there's no tension on the brake line. Now you've got that out, you need to take this retaining bolt off of there. So I'm using an impact tool here. You don't have to do that, and you probably don't want to do that because there is certainly the opportunity to strip that, and you do not want to strip this pin that's keeping the rotor on. You'll be all day trying to get that thing removed. But once you get it out, go ahead and pop your rotor off. And now putting the new one on is as easy as putting the new one on and lining up that pinhole with the spot that exists already. Now that you got your new rotor on, you'll go ahead and put your retaining pin back in. I tighten it up using my impact tool again, but you don't have to do that if you don't have one. Just again, make sure that you don't strip it. So I'm using Brake Best brakes. These are O'Reilly's brands. You can see here with the comparison, there's a lot more brake pad on the new one than there was on my old one. So it was definitely time for these things to be changed. So what we're gonna need to do is we're gonna need to take our brake caliper off of the bungee cord that we have. But here I am taking the bolt and I'm lining the bolts up. That way this thing can sit into place and I know where it needs to go. And I'll tighten them just a little bit. I won't overdo it though. Now that I've got that top one in, you can see I'm placing the bottom one in and I'm just trying to get the brake caliper lined up where it's supposed to be. And I leave those loosely in there until it's time for me to begin tightening them once I know that it's lined up in the right spot. Here I'm just getting them tightened down. I didn't show you all the rest of me ensuring that it was lined up, but now that I got it lined up, I'm going to take my brake pads and I'm going to be able to slip them right inside of here. On this one I had to I had to push the caliper back some to allow the brake pad to slide in. And I'm just using a wrench to do this. This is not like the official way. Don't apply too much pressure. You could bend your rotor. But here I got both brake pads slid in. I'm just checking to make sure that the rotor's gonna spin. I pushed this one a little too far in, so I grabbed some needle nose pliers to pull it back out. That way you can line up your pin. I lined up the bottom pin and put it through, put this tension plate back on there, and then had to apply some pressure to be able to get that top pin in and in place. But once you've got that top pin in place, you just push it over a bit. You push the bottom one over a bit, and then you'll just take a hammer and lightly tap whatever tool you use as your push pin removal, which I showed you guys earlier what I use. You'll just tap that to push it back into place until it's all the way in. Then of course you're going to go back, tighten up all your lug nuts while it's up in the air, and then you're going to lower it and tighten your lug nuts up on the ground until they're all the way tight.
All right, guys, so we are all done with the brakes and rotors on the front of this 2016 Tesla Model X. If this video was not helpful, I'm sorry. But if it was helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hopefully, and then share it with a friend, maybe. All of that and more, I guess. I got other videos. You can check them out. Hopefully, they're helpful. All right, guys. Peace.